So today I'm with Shawn Wilkinson from Storj. Shawn, how are you doing today, mate?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And yourself?
I am doing absolutely fantastic, thank you, matey. So I've got a number of questions that I prepared for you today. The first one I wanted to run with was clarifying what Storj is and what it is not. So I'm gonna just pick something out of the air here. Is it? Would you consider Storj to be like a blockchain project? Because it's I've written a few notes here. These are my sort of true or false statements, and you can tell me if they're true or false. So it's not meant to be a rival for Google Drive or Dropbox. Is that true or false?
So what we're really building here is a platform.
Hmm.
I think in 2014 we kind of started off as a decentralized Dropbox competitor,
Okay, so you started
right?
out with that intention. Okay.
And then we kind of like did our research and did our homework, and investigated that area, and found that, wait a minute, for years and years and years, Dropbox has stored all their data on Amazon S3. Like that's just kind of the facade behind, the real, engine,
Okay.
is object storage platforms like Amazon S3 that store a majority of the world's data.
Right.
If you want any facts on this, I mean, look at when Amazon S3 went down 3 months ago and took a quarter of the internet with it. So we're highly dependent on that infrastructure layer. And again, like Dropbox is just a facade before that. So we really decided that if we wanted to be disruptive, if we really wanted to bring better security and better performance and better user control over their data at much reduced price points, the best thing to go after would be the underlying platform, not the facade on top. So
Yeah.
the way we see it, we're a competitor more with Amazon S3, or Google Cloud, or Microsoft Azure, and we really enable people to build kind of the next generation Dropboxes on top. Or if some reason, crazy reason, Dropbox decided, you know what, we don't want to spend all this money on a data center, and we want to give our users more privacy and security and performance and cost savings, they could also use storage as well.
Oh my goodness. See,
This is
that has
the root of the
clarified on a whole new level. So if we're talking about the which layer of technology you've gone after. So
right.
that's probably something that I was actually vaguely aware of that, but you've just brought it front and center. Dropbox is what's they're in the business of user experience, I would call it. But the
Right.
back end technology infrastructure is Amazon's web services.
Yeah, I think they're using another solution now, but they
Right.
use Amazon for a while, and I think they're using another solution.
But do
But
they own it or do they outsource it?
I think they swap between the two.
Okay.
That's been in flux. A lot of people have gone from like Amazon S3 to their own infrastructure, and then like back, and then, so there's like Box has a model, Dropbox has a model, and they've like swapped models back and forth. So
Right.
again, like we're just on the underlying layer where you actually store the data, and then we want to help people build the applications on top, that you and I actually interface with.
Right. So storage is going to stick to that competency of being that back end network infrastructure without getting into the user applications and stuff like that. You'll power that rather than being that.
Yeah, so we see it two layers there. So one, we're really aiming for developers.
Mhm.
These are the people who actually make the decisions on cloud storage. When you and I download the next cat pairing, sharing picture app, like we don't care whether it goes like Amazon S3 or some other provider. We just care that the app works. So the developers are the ones who actually make those choices. And so we're all about enabling the developers and giving them the tool sets they need, working with existing applications to integrate storage. And when we like make applications ourselves, it's where we're like providing an example or building out a use case that like didn't exist or couldn't exist without, distributed and decentralized cloud storage. So
Okay.
we want to bridge the gap as much as possible. Build the bridge, and then maybe we'll drive the first few cars, across it, tell people it's safe, and really help people along as well.
So you just said something really interesting there. You said applications that either didn't exist or couldn't exist without this technology.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? Because that sounds really interesting. Like, so what?
So one of the
You're saying that certain things are going to be possible because storage exists.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the things that I've, been exploring is something we just term hyperlocal CDN.
Hyper
So it's
local.
like CDN, Content Distribution Network.
Oh, CDN, right? Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a fancy word for, hey, we have a bunch of nodes in the network. If we can store that data on the guy that's 3 blocks down, we can transit that data to you, in theory, much faster than any other traditional architecture could. Because again, he's 3 blocks down versus a data center 200
And
miles
how would
away.
you ever connect those two people together, the content provider and the consumer, without a network like this?
Right.
Right.
So you can never do that before having this architecture. But there's still a lot of work and technology that needs to be done to bring that into a usable case. And so we
Right.
figure, hey, we're probably the best ones, that they can help bridge that gap. But again, that's one of the more future use cases. We're focusing more on, well, we already know there's a 20 to $30 billion industry that's growing, every year. No one says I need less storage first. Let's probably focus on that
Hmm.
first and really gather a lot of learnings on that traditional industry before we start to try like crazy new ideas.
Right. Absolutely.
Let's start with what we.
Yeah. So earlier on you said like these tech companies might kind of go back and forth between owning their infrastructure, outsourcing their infrastructure, and whatever. So you might assume that you begin with by outsourcing it when you're building a business, and you might think, well, let's cut costs, let's own our infrastructure, get more control over it. And you think, oh, but cost is more than just the money you spend, hassle,
Right.
back and forth. So when I look at Storj's marketing messages, it's very much like this is a lot quicker and a lot cheaper than the other offerings out there, right? So Storj is becoming a rival for Amazon S3 on that basis, yeah? Is
Yeah.
that
So yeah, I mean the whole thought is to have a disruptive product, it needs to be 10 times better than the previous one.
okay?
And so you have this massive distributed network that uses cryptocurrency as payment and incentivization, and there's all these components on it. And while it's really powerful, it's very raw.
Yeah.
And so we kind of realized then, we started the project in 2014, realized this is really powerful, but it's just not going to get there in the current form. It's too raw. And so we, started a company to focus that, provide products and services on top, so that people can just go to the website in 60 seconds, sign up, download the tools, use it, right? And from dropping on the website to uploading, downloading files is minutes. And versus a traditional cloud storage provider is 12 steps in a phone call, and then many more steps. And then if you look at distributed storage networks that don't have that level of abstraction on top, it takes hours to days to set up. So it's really about building layers, building infrastructure, building abstractions that allow people to use it. And that's very important to us. The way I like to break it down, I think a little bit for more crypto people, is you have Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's fast. Well, no, sorry.
It
It's the
was.
opposite of that. It's not fast, but it's very secure, it's very robust, but the last thing it is fast.
Right.
And so you have people building kind of layer 2 networks like Lightning or Raiden or these kinds of things that can go on top that still have that decentralized and distributed aspect of nature, but it allows you to use some really cool tricks to get that last component there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we've always been building, is both this network on the bottom layer, but also this abstraction up top, thinking of it us building Bitcoin and Coinbase at the same time. So there is sometimes a little bit of brand confusion there, storage network to storage the product, and some of that is intentional. But it's all about, again, providing a layer that people can actually use,
Hold on. So
which is
there is a distinction there between, what did you call it? Storage the network and storage the product.
right.
But so just so I'm not confused here. So Storj is Storj going to build a front end user application for file storage, or are you going to stick to being a network that provides storages to other apps?
Yeah. So it's kind of, again, a bit of both, is that we have the network, then we have, you drop on, so you can go on storage.io, you can click on rent your drive, and you can become part of the network.
Right.
Then you have storage.io that you drop in as a developer, and you can go use the tools to build out your applications. And, we're working on with, many integrations with many different, new and existing applications there. So when you want to, for example, have your Dropbox kind of example, you would go through someone who has an existing application or has built a new one that's built on top of this platform. And that's where you as the user really interface with it. The other way you might interface is if you're more a power user or a DevOps person, a developer, and you just want to store like lots of data, then you use the platform more directly. But again, it's this whole idea of network, product, and then the applications is what you and I actually touch.
Gotcha.
And those layers have to be built there. So like you're not sitting there like, oh no, the storage price has gone up, and like, do I need to add more money or less money, or like you don't have to worry about that. You shouldn't have to worry about that. You should just worry about like, okay, I'm storing my data on the most secure, fast, cheapest platform, and I'm just dragging and dropping, and that's it.
Right.
So that's really the experience that we want users to have.
Right.
Is a good one.
You said a minute ago about the fast setup. So why does it take like so long to set up on a traditional system? You said sometimes hours, sometimes days. We have to go through 12 steps in a phone call and all this sort of stuff. Is it the fact that you guys have gone and created a private currency that's allowed the sign up to be like so fast, or what?
Not really. It's more just on the usability side, right? It's just like, hey, you download the Storj application, you hit in, 3 fields, and you hit go, right? So we've done a lot of work, to bring down the number of steps,
right,
that you have. There has been some detriments to that, and to making it, easy. Some people not understanding, some of the components around networking and not providing, good, being a good farmer, right? And providing, resources and good uptime. But we're trying to help balance that and trying to provide people with the tools that they need, and the resources they need to be where they need to be. We've focused on just making that easy on the farmer side. And we also try to make that very easy, if not easier, on the people who are actually storing data on the network, because that's the real driver. And so
the buyers,
bring it down so you just like username, password, sign up, but abstracting stuff like, for example, in like a JavaScript tool, what you do is usernames and passwords are bad, but we're used to them. And so what the JavaScript tool did is you would sign in, it generated a public and private key pair, store the public key on the server, and like never use the username and password again. So there's unique tricks where you can make it look like a traditional system, what you're used to. But again, change the things under the hood. And that's very important. You could give someone a super fast, speedy car that, runs on water or whatever, right? And they get in and there's a joystick instead of a steering wheel. And they're like, I don't know how to operate this, right? Or you can go the Tesla route, right? Where you can like, hey, we want to have people that have like electric cars. Let's make them super fast, sexy, give them like a better user experience and like better safety than like any other car on the road. And people just flood into that. And so there's a lot of work to get that, right? And it's very iterative process. The Tesla example is the Roadster, then the X, the S, then the X, and then, like there's a whole process there.
Right.
And a lot of things that you have to go through, but that's the way to do it. That's the way to build it. And that's the way to get it.
It even happened to me the other day, right? I was in the US and I rented a car and it was keyless, right? As long as the key is in the car, you press the start button. And I kept catching myself trying to put the key in. And this is what we're talking about, user habit, right? If you expect to sit in a car, grab the steering wheel and put a key in or even press the start button, if those things go away, you go, how do I operate this thing?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and that can bug people out, even if it's a better product. It needs to be a very sort of gentle transition. And even me, I
Yeah.
can't even get used to the start button on a
Yeah,
car.
I mean that's the same thing. The idea of like someone's using an existing application or downloads a Dropbox like client and it's using storage and they're like they don't even know, they don't even care, right? You know, we like to, you know, push option. We have well, let's say you have an application that, you know, again stores these cat pictures and there's 5 million users and we only have to really work with like 5 developers, you know, help get this out. And it's pushed out an app update. And they're like, oh, I can get my cat pictures faster. The cost of the service came down. You know, like, I don't know what happened, but it's better. Right? And
It's
that's
funny,
that's
isn't it?
really
At the end of the day, the user just wants it like better, faster, and cheaper. How? They don't really care. Right?
don't care. Like, I don't care how the sausage is made. I just,
That's
you know,
right.
care that the sausage is delicious.
Right.
So,
And like you were saying,
yeah.
like Apple goes to great lengths to make it
Mm-hmm.
simple, like great lengths, just so you can press one button.
Yeah, and there's a balance there. Like, you know, there's the case where, you know, Apple, you know, does do a lot of those design decisions to make it as simple as possible. But, you know, all our software is free and open source software. So on the other side of that, you know, we want to be more like, you know, a Linux machine where it's like,
Yeah.
if you want to take the advanced features or add something new, it's just like, here's the toolbox, you know, go for it.
Right.
So there's almost two sides of that coin. It's a very difficult balance,
It
but
is. It is.
and
Yeah.
we're trying to lead the more traditional route, and but still, have people have access to that. So imagine you store your data in this like application that uses storage, and you know it's all abstracted. And one day there's a tool to be able to for you to personally control, have more control over that data and move it to another server or whatever you like.
Hmm.
So it's all about like building the foundation and the base layer first, and then moving on to the advanced features.
Right. Okay. Another thing I wanted to ask you about is like, storage is it's talked about in the cryptocurrency and blockchain world, but it's not a blockchain, is it? I mean, what you've done is you've used a cryptographic token as the currency. So what I'm really asking is the Storj project, has it come about because blockchain technology was invented and then this has been built on top of that, or could you have built Storj even without it?
Yeah, so basically what we've come down to, like, it's impossible to build a storage network without kind of Bitcoin and blockchain.
Okay.
We'll add in Ethereum as a buzzword there as well. Remember, I've been around for 5 years,
Right.
so
Okay.
habits of terminologies and they change over time. So we've always known how to build distributed and decentralized storage networks for data storage and transfer.
Right.
I mean, look at like BitTorrent or
I was going to say this is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
they all exist. Well, we know how they work and operate. The missing component was always the incentivization piece, right? I store like a popular movie on BitTorrent. It stays around forever, and you get like super fast transfer speeds. If I store like a picture of my cat on there, people might not really care about that, and like that doesn't stay around, that doesn't propagate, and it doesn't have good performance. And so the missing piece is like that incentivization. Like, okay, I want you to store this data. Here's something, some money, something that you get for storing that data, and that provides a good enough incentive for it to be around, and when I need it later on or to transfer it around.
Right.
So we primarily use blockchain technology, buzzword there. First counterparty, then now Ethereum, for that currency, for that incentivization part.
Right.
That's where it's needed. That's where it's most important. We don't necessarily fully believe in, building out kind of the management of files on the blockchain and all these kinds of things, because like that doesn't scale.
And is it necessary?
At
This is the key thing, right? With blockchain being a buzz, it's like, how much of what blockchain is capable of do you really
Right.
need to solve the problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah,
You with
there's
me?
some interesting cases there that it would be useful for, but the technology isn't there yet in
Okay.
terms of supporting the viability of that and what you need. Like when you want your files, you want them in milliseconds.
Mm,
And like blockchain goes like 10 minutes, maybe 3 minutes at best. So like that's not going to work. So there could be some use cases for like a secondary system, right? So where you could pile up all your files. So there's a statistic out there that 70% of the data we store in the cloud we never access again.
is that right? Is
So
that
you
statistically?
Yeah, so you could think of a case where like the blockchain could be this robust secondary layer that, the storage labs, and this is one of our headline goals, is like the storage labs building just like falls over for whatever reason. The blockchain is kind of the secondary layer that you can still kind of get your data out and access and whatnot. But when you want to access that data, X number of seconds, X number of milliseconds, like you need that lightning layer
Mm,
on top.
right.
And that's what we're really trying to build. So there's always a balance. And so what we've used it is for incentivization and payments primarily. But there are things we're exploring now with Ethereum where maybe you can build some secondary layers that would be useful. But again, like none of those are mature.
Right.
None of those are there yet. None of those have scaled. But it is time to start researching and investigating and maybe pushing some boundaries there.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Um,
You touched on something else there. You said that you mentioned the move from counterparty to Ethereum. So the was it SCJX was the Storj X coin.
SJC.
Yeah, that one. Hey, right. So that was
We're changing it to storage.
you're just going to change it to storage, right? And you're going to go
Yeah.
from basing it on counterparty, which is essentially do you call it a colored coin? It's based on Bitcoin,
Yeah, so it's a layer on top of Bitcoin. So
right?
you have Bitcoin, and then you have this counterparty protocol that's on top of Bitcoin, and then you have storage coin.
Right. And that caused some
Um,
problems because,
yeah, because it's built on Bitcoin, and so you have the fun mempool issues and the transaction backlog and the high fees and like a lot of issues
it
there.
just became not viable for your use case, right?
Yeah, at the end of the day, like we focus on user experience. And so when people are having a terrible user experience, then that's not good for us.
Right.
So
You have to take your business elsewhere, right? To a different
yeah,
network.
yeah.
So it
So
is.
we kind of, moved and or in the process of moving, right? To something that more supports the use case and instead of hours to days to do transfers, it's like seconds to minutes, right? And instead of high fees, like it's an order of magnitude or less
Mhm.
of reduction. And it allows us to do all these like cool features and stuff. And also just allows us to use a widely accepted standard.
Right. Yeah.
So it was a good move for a lot of reasons, and a lot of people have been very supportive of it. And like, it makes complete sense, and this is where we need to be.
Right.
So
Have you actually removed a layer there? Because you was like Bitcoin counterparty protocol, then the storage coin. So now it's like Ethereum network. It's the ERC20 standard rather than being a protocol on top, and then an Ethereum-based token, which is the storage, right? So is it
yeah,
technically simpler or what?
it's probably about the same.
Okay.
Perhaps there's a layer removed because ERC20 tokens are more accepted in terms of the protocol, whereas Counterparty was an addition
Right.
to Bitcoin and then, build tokens on top. So perhaps there might be one layer of simplification
Hmm.
there. But
I suppose it depends on
people,
whose point of view. I'd say from the
yeah,
user's point of view, it's better because if you've got like my Ether wallet, then you can store all of your ERC20 tokens right there. And actually on your Trezor, your little hardware wallet, you plug that into your My Ether wallet, and there you go. You're essentially
yeah,
storing your storage coins and your basic attention tokens and all this stuff, Humanic, boom, straight on the Trezor. So that's what got my attention about it, to be honest. I was like, this is good, because now it's simplifying the user experience, you know.
Absolutely. That's the headline goal. And it's also about network effect as well, right?
It is, right.
You got a train with a bunch of cars behind it. You want to run it on the standardized tracks so you can access as much of the country and the world as possible.
I like that.
So that's the way we look at it, is like, you say, whose tracks is, better or worse. It's just like, where can I get to with it? And so, you can get to is more exchanges, more wallets, interface with more projects, and those are things that are really important for growth.
Right.
So
and the tracks are kind of like the standards are like the tracks. So I like the metaphor. And I suppose you could, each protocol is like a different set of tracks, and one code won't run on that set of protocols and so on.
Yeah, people are trying to build bridges, right? But
it's like side chains or bridges even.
Yeah, it's just like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to put your train on top of another train that can run on these tracks, So, like some cases that makes sense. Yeah, some cases it's like,
maybe.
So, I mean, again, like we try to be as flexible and as agnostic as possible, right? Is that that's why, as a 2014 project, we're still alive, right? Compared to many others, is that we just like stay a little nimble, stay a little flexible, and when things are clearly moving in that direction, well, let's move in that direction.
Right. Well, with the storage currency, it was almost like the ground was moving underneath you. You're like, okay, time to move, right? It doesn't seem like this is stable.
Yeah.
So that was
absolutely.
wise. So that flexibility. So
go on, mate, go. Folks, to be clear, they've definitely got us a long ways. But at the end of the day, we have to care about our core user base.
Right. Exactly.
Because
they're the customer, so they ultimately they're going to take their business elsewhere if your service isn't good. So it's just you've got to for the sake of your own business, right? You got to. So on the storage website, it quotes some prices for storage, and my question was: is the price of storage fixed, or do you have a market that sets the price? How does that work?
Yes, that's one of the things about the abstraction piece that's very important. Is like when people come in, like, do you necessarily want to be buying storage and like pricing going up and down and like left, right? Like that's not something.
Right. Whether you're buying or selling storage, right?
Right. Like you just don't want to deal with that fluctuation, or people buying storage really don't have to deal with that. So again, part of the service is to abstract that to say like, hey, fixed pricing on bandwidth, fixed pricing on storage. Don't worry about the market. We'll take care of that. And so that's, part of the risk and the service that we provide on top is just taking care of that market so you don't have to worry about it. And then the way we can do that is quite an interesting model is, like, a lot of people like take fee-based models and stuff like this. We just use basic economic efficiency principles. Is that you can go directly to the network, and there's nothing stopping you, and get the storage contract and store data. The way I like to think of it is like farmers producing apples. Apples represents the storage. So you can go out of the countryside and you can go buy like 3 apples, right, directly from the farmer, and move, drive all the way back to the city and eat your nice, super delicious apples, right? Or we can go to the farmer and say, we'd like 10,000 apples, please, right? And obviously we're going to get a bulk discount on that. We can ship them across the country, pack them, ship them, clean them, put them in the grocery store, right? And so you just have to go to your local grocery store, pick up the apples. It ends up being a heck of a lot cheaper than you sourcing it yourself, and a whole bunch less work. And so that's the way that we really kind of look at it. So we can make our money off the market efficiencies, not off the backs of the users, the farmers, and so it adds a nice balance.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you've created a wholesale layer, I would call that.
Pretty much.
Right? So you can still go direct to the manufacturer, right? Go and pick the
Right.
apples direct if you want to.
Yeah.
But the whole point of that, like a manufacturer, wholesaler, retailer layering system is for convenience, So you can walk
Absolutely.
into a local convenience store. That's why they call it that. Pay it and get your apple and walk out, right? You don't want
Right.
to drive all
Exactly.
the way to the farm, That's
Yeah, there's people who like want to build distributed applications and whatnot that want to go direct, and that makes sense.
right.
And there's other cases where maybe you start on our service and then use the network more directly, or a mix of the two. Like getting that set up takes a while, but if you can like get something started in like a couple minutes and then like use that to say, hey, these apples are really good. I want to buy more. Let me just go direct.
I want to get
That's
a better
fun.
price, right?
And that's what the token is really great at, is like you have a company that's providing these value-added services, almost like Coinbase, right? Where do people go to like their first intro point? Is something like Coinbase, and that brings inflow into the ecosystem. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can still have an ecosystem around that, and so it's a very symbiotic relationship.
It is. So check this out. Theoretically, then, could I set up as a? I'm not going to do this. I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, could I set up as a storage wholesaler like that? I could go and buy bulk storage from the market and then set up an online service selling fixed price storage in the same way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The way we see it is kind of network effect prevents you from doing that a little bit. So, for example, we buy 10,000 apples and you buy 1,000 apples. Obviously, we're going to get a better rate for that, and we're going to have more intelligence on what farmers are producing good apples. But what you could do is you could use these same rails to say, hey, I want to sell oranges, right? And that's something that I'm good at, and that's something that I can provide, to this network. And that's where, again, like you're differentiating yourself a little bit. That's a service that you could provide very well, and that also grows the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you go into the store and now like you like apples, but like now there's oranges on the shelves. And that, makes you want to come back to that store because there's just more choices for you.
I see what you
So
mean.
sure, there might be a little competition there. Like I might say, okay, I used to get 10 apples, now I'm going to get 8 apples and like 2 oranges. But at the end of the day, it's like, who wins? Like, you keep on coming back to that grocery store. You keep, like, the farmers are doing great. They're happy. They're getting, more customers. Maybe it's less that. Maybe I'm buying 10 apples and 2 oranges now that I wasn't buying before. So it's all about creating a healthy ecosystem and a healthy market.
Right.
And some incentives there to make that happen.
So to bring that right into the concrete level, I like the metaphor of apples and oranges, but you were talking about intelligence on who are the best farmers. I think you actually mentioned this earlier on. So the difference between the farmers are things like the speed at which they serve the information, how much uptime their systems have, all that kind of stuff. How much storage they provide. How good of a service provider are they as a farmer or a provider of storage, and then bandwidth and all that kind of stuff. So the more you buy, the more you would see who are the real hot performers, right? And they would be the premium apples. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah. So I mean, there's all different kinds of needs and wants on the customer level for different types of. Again, just going back to this analogy that makes more sense.
I thought like if you're storing a file is storing a file is storing a file. I don't know how much variation there is there.
So there is variation there.
Okay.
So there's variation for people who just want the most like premium apples, right? So perhaps that's an allusion to like performance, right?
Okay.
There's people who are like using this in some kind of ingredient for something, and so they just want like bulk apples. Like, it doesn't have to be the best quality, but like the price being cheap is very important.
So that could be those that segment you talked about where a whole bunch of cloud storage is never accessed again. So the
Right.
speed of retrieval wouldn't be that important. I just want the
Right.
cheapest storage I can get, right?
Right. And it's like the cheapest apples. Like people probably are not going to eat these apples, but if we we like them anyways,
Right.
right? These are display apples.
Right. Okay.
Uh, so, and the other thing is perhaps, they want to make sure there's no like GMO and pesticides. So maybe that's the more secure apples. They don't care how much it costs. It's just, I want that security aspect. So there's a bunch of different variations in there, and that's one of the challenges is for us is to focus that, right? And make sure like people want different types of apples, they want different types of storage, different things are important to them. And so it's about, trying to gauge that and trying to, provide that service to
And I
them.
suppose that's the benefit of you being a specialist is you start to
Yeah.
see these different shades within stories that I previously didn't appreciate. So that's really interesting. And I'm a big proponent of that. When I'm studying the crypto world, if I see a project trying to be too many different things,
Yeah,
I already start feeling worried about it because
absolutely.
it's just spreading yourself too thin. It's like there's lots of phrases like this: "Man who tries to chase two rabbits goes hungry." That type of thing. Yeah,
Absolutely.
because you'd be like trying to chase two.
And that's something I think we just kind of learned, School of Hard Knocks is that like focusing on like all of the cloud stuff and like decentralized Dropbox and this like, after, learning and researching and talking to people, we figure out like what's the focus. And so we started in 2014, so I think, we've kind of learned over time, what to focus on.
Right.
I think a lot of the projects in the space will go through the same series of hard knocks and maturity as well. When they were like,
So
oh, maybe we can't do everything, and maybe we should focus on like this specific market segment.
right.
And
Yeah, knowing what it is what you're doing exactly. So you say we started in 2014, and I see there were four founders listed on the site. So did you guys all know each other before the project? Did you come together
so
for
I
the project?
started in 14. The first public thing was the March of 2014 Texas Bitcoin hackathon, which we won first place. Then the project really got its legs in 20 August of 2014 when we did our token sale.
Hmm.
Um, and then we kind of realized, okay, so a lot of the founders were like participants in the community. And so it kind of got a company started and really didn't get it going till August of 2015.
Okay.
That's where employment contracts were signed and they came on as co-founders for kind of the business. But I
Gotcha.
started the project, and these people were a part of the community, and we just kind of decided to kind of pick and choose the people, the top contributors to run this company, which is just a vehicle to bring the whole vision forward, to bring the project forward, because again, in its raw form, it doesn't get there, right?
Absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about I keep seeing Storj in the news over the last few months about you receiving various rounds of investment. So can you talk about those and what each of the rounds of funding has enabled the company to do?
Yeah, so we started out with $500,000 crowdfund in 2014. We just finished up the beginning of this year a $3 million seed investment. That was kind of a rolling seed investment. So that's including all the funding that we've got from more traditional equity investors. And these are people who have been very helpful and very smart players who know how to build big businesses. So the guys that run Techstars Southeast,
Okay.
Michael Cohen, Tyler Scriven, very highly experienced entrepreneurs, to kind of the participants, partners in Google Ventures, CEO of Ionic Security. So experienced people who know how to run businesses that have really been helping us along. So we launched the product on March 15th, and we thought, okay, with this migration to Ethereum, we need, more resources, more jet fuel to really scale this up, and the market is there to do that. And so we decided to, do the second token sale to say, okay, like it's working. Now we need like kind of the resources to scale it up. And so that's what we did. So we've taken a very off the beaten path approach, like crowd sale, equity funding, crowd sale. But we're a very unique company trying to do some very unique things. So
break the mold.
Sometimes diverge from the more traditional models. So yeah.
Cool. That's cool. I think we've already covered this, but like, if you can do this in like a one-liner, if I asked you what's the major problem that Storj is working to solve in the marketplace, how could you sum it up in a soundbite?
Better cloud storage, probably 10x better, but looks and feels the same as what you're used to, right? We're trying to build the Tesla here, right? The Roadster, the S, the X, and make that a much better car. And there's a lot that needs to happen there. There's a lot of innovation and iteration that needs to happen there. But we're getting there. We're kind of, I think, in kind of the Roadster stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the car, you can drive it, it works. And we're trying to kind of get, make improvements and get to the Model S stage.
Yeah.
So
maybe
that's the way I look at it.
Maybe it's a bit of a flawed question in the world we're in now, because when a new innovation comes to market, I think it might be even reasonable to say that we know like we're building this platform or what capabilities it has. However, how people are going to use it in all the weird and wonderful and creative ways, we don't know, right? We know it's fantastic technology, but like what people will have done with Bitcoin even was like, who would have ever thought of that? And then the entrepreneurs build on top of it. And that's the beautiful thing that's innovation, isn't it, right? Someone just completely thinks outside the box and adds something onto it. So, yeah. So you know what you're doing. You're building a higher performance, less expensive, more innovative, storage network, and how that's used, right? Exactly. And that's what you were talking about earlier on. That'll enable some stuff to be done that previously wasn't even thought of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a good one, actually. I like that. Good stuff. All right, this is a daft technical question. I was running the Storj share thing, and I think it was because I run a VPN. It couldn't get to the network. Is that expected behavior?
So there might have just been a little configuration there that you need to do.
Okay.
Is that for people who are providing private networks, we're actually starting to recommend that they use VPNs.
Oh, you said recommend? Okay.
Yeah. But I think there is a little bit perhaps more documentation and like help that needs to be done there, just like help people set that up.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think my computer could get out, but it was and then I couldn't get back in for some reason. So that just configuration, right? So that's entirely possible. Okay. I just wanted to ask you that. That was
that's the thing. You think the internet works one way, and then you like dive into it, and it's like all these different like ways of connecting and these different protocols, and one's compatible and one's not compatible, and this guy's publicly accessible, this guy's behind some crazy firewall, and it's just like
it's like a chaotic environment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very chaotic environment. It is a decentralized and distributed network, and all the fun stuff that comes with it.
Right. It's like being in the jungle, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a quick question about the farmers, right? People who are going to be providing the storage, right? When I first came across the project, I thought, okay, so pretty much anybody, and theoretically anybody with some spare hard drive space could rent their drive, right? But I sat there and thought about this and sort of projected forward, and I was thinking, is this going to go the way of Bitcoin mining, where economies of scale will price like individuals out of the market? Is that going to happen, or is that not going to happen because it's storage?
So I think less so, because at the end of the day, the smaller users have some unique things. So basically, if I'm running this in my house or my dorm room or whatever, And like with my own hardware, with extra hard drive space, like my costs are zero. Right? It's all sunk costs. And so I think I can essentially adjust the pricing accordingly. Versus people who are running large operations, like don't have that luxury. And they're buying like special hardware to gain an advantage. And so when this is just like, as open as, air or water, right? Then there's more flexibility there. So you with your sunk cost with this bid down. But there's still opportunities there where you have like high demand for data in an area where someone could have an opportunity to build up a lot. So at the end of the day, it's a market, right?
Yep.
And so it's all about creating that balanced marketplace and those efficiencies. Again, going back to one of like the headline statistics, 70% of the data that we store in the cloud we never access again. You could see a case where, for example, 70% of that data just gets stored on average everyday hard drives. It's just kind of passive income for people. Just kind of sits there versus the people, like the other 30%, you have like the more industrial people who are really trying to hit the market and provide like, very fast service and all these kinds of things.
And they'll be too expensive for those long-term storage.
So they'll be more expensive, but they'll be fulfilling the use case that is necessary. So we talk to people, for example, like more on the video delivery side, like Netflix side, and they're like, cost, we don't care. It's all about performance, right? That's the thing that affects the bottom line. And so, those cases where, again, like it's a market that is flexible. And so, like, it doesn't matter. But if you can get that data there faster than anyone else, like, you win.
Right.
So it's, again, like it's, we have assumptions and we have ideas and we have theories, but it's all about building that network and building that marketplace that allows you to be flexible and allows the people to meet in the middle. And our job is to abstract that and reduce the friction as much as possible. But that is the powerful component. That's the powerful component, is that flexible.
Okay. One little tiny
we'll
thing.
We'll see where the users land, but it's all about creating that marketplace where they can.
Okay. Can you just polish this bit of my understanding? So it's a marketplace. So does that mean, because I don't remember, if I open my Storj share now, I don't remember being able to set my own price. Is that going to be possible?
Yeah, so we don't have that as an option in Storj share, but it actually is an option in the protocol. So on the level of protocol, you can actually set and negotiate pricing.
Okay.
So that's something that we'd like to kind of add in the future to give people more options there. But at the end of the day, there's very few buyers and lots of farmers, right? So you don't really know how that marketplace is going to work out. So as I think the network becomes a little bit more diverse, then those options will be there. But at the end of the day, where you're just focused on like filling the drive with data in the first place, and like getting the demand there. So
my goodness, I just thought of something. So every time I've downloaded Storj share and allocated it like a few drives of 10 gigs or whatever, pretty quickly it used the entire allocation. Now, is that you guys buying it in bulk? Because I didn't realize how it.
So that's one thing that we're trying to add in is more like contract futures.
Right.
So purchase in bulk ahead of time to kind of stabilize network traffic and communication. But it's just you're in a good place on the network.
Okay.
You just got filled up with some good data. Yeah.
Nice,
so there's a lot of metrics and math that goes into that.
All right, cool. Right, let me ask you the magic wand question, right? I don't know if you've seen any of my previous interviews, but it goes like this. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it and solve just one problem in the world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and blockchains, what would it be?
Oh man, that's a hard one.
You're right. You're going to go at one. It's not a magic lamp, it's a magic wand.
Huh.
doesn't have to be related to your storage business either.
No, there's just a lot of problems.
There is a
and
lot of
issues.
problems. That's why I only say one, because you've got to focus in on one.
I guess like the first thing that comes to mind is like scale, right? Just magically wave your wand and like solve the block size debate and like scaling issues. I guess the second thing is really like the higher level component of that is figuring out ways for people in the crypto ecosystem to work together.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people working on different projects and they see each other as competitive, and what we're really just trying to disrupt is the more traditional Aryan industry.
Right.
So if we can come together and figure out things, like a block size debate and have processes to do that and just work together to do that, I think that would solve the overarching things of things like scale.
Right. Actually, your two answers share something there, which is what I'm hearing is more cooperation rather than this contention we've got. Because if we had more cooperation,
and we all live together in peace and harmony.
Right. I like it.
Or at least respect each other enough and try to move forward.
To make it productive discussion.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely with you on that one. All right, cool. Well, we're almost out of time. So is there anything else you think is worth mentioning or you want to make sure we talk about before we close?
I just recommend people go to storj.io, STORJ.io, and try it out.
Definitely.
Seeing is believing.
It is indeed. You got any social links you want to give out? Or are they all on the website?
Yeah, so they're all on the website. It's at Storj Project. If you want to hit me up, I'm at Super3.
That's Twitter.
And I highly recommend that you go to storj.io and then click on community. We have a community chat where like everyone's there. So
great.
That's where all the stuff is happening.
All right, cool. Well, Shawn, it's been an absolute joy having you today. So thank you very much for being on the Cryptoverse.
Thanks for having me.
All right, see you soon. So thanks for joining me today, guys. If you liked this episode, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Please leave me a comment below with some feedback and get subscribed. And please support the Cryptoverse and boost cryptocurrency adoption by going to cryptoversity.com/podcast and becoming a patron. From just a few dollars a month, you can secure Cryptoversity's future, get unlimited access to all Cryptoversity courses, and access a private patrons-only chat group where you get direct access to me. That is all for today, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Cryptoverse. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.